Oh, hey there. I see you've been eyeing my trophy room. That's probably because I set you up to be looking at it. Well, do you want to see what's inside? Alright, I guess I'll show you. Take a look at these! Smokes from oldest to newest. A collection of the features the finals took from the best shooters to make itself better. And all of the play buttons I've received for hitting subscriber milestones. I think they're in the mail right now. They should be here any day. Oh well. Are you ready for my final and most recent exhibit? Behold all of the amazing melee weapons the finals has to offer. Gosh, these weapons are so good. And they're really fun too. Yeah, just sitting behind glass. Yep. You know what? I'm not even a trophy guy anyway. Woo! Yeah! I feel so alive! It's no secret, the finals has insanely fun melee weapons. I don't know why, but when shooter games give you a melee weapon, sometimes you just leave your shooting days behind you. In other games, melee is kind of like your backup if you run out of ammo. But in some games, like the finals, they'll give you just a melee weapon and that's it, and then send you off into World War III. And when you're using it and it works, it kind of feels so wrong, yet so right. It's working and it's fun, but maybe it feels like it shouldn't be sometimes. All the melee weapons in the game can kind of feel bad to be on a team with. Even if you want to play with your team and take fights with them, the melee playstyle doesn't let that happen all that often. Hey man, do you want to fight that enemy together so that it's a 2v1? Sure man. Do you have a catapult? This is a big part of why, in most competitive FPS team games, that you see less shotguns and a lot less melee in the pro scene. So in the finals, utility that is either good at range or helps you close the gap is really useful if you're playing with a team that cares. Nice shield. I'll go into more detail later on in the video. I'm going to talk about all of them in depth, but first I have to finish talking about universal things about all the melee weapons. Nice shield, idiot. Anyway, taking fights with your team is going to be a little bit different now. Instead of fighting side by side with your friend, it's going to be a little more, hey, you go in there and start beating them to death, and while you're distracting them, I'll line up a shot.
I'm already in there and dead.
Something I've noticed while playing is that people are absolutely terrified of you. They will either start running and never look back, or they will make it their sole mission in life to kill you. And rightfully so, because enemies that underestimate you, well, let's just say Darwin Awards can apply to video games too. Put some respect to my name, son! Using this respect that most players give you gives your team a massive advantage on the distracted enemy. And I shouldn't really say this because I'm gonna run into it probably a lot more often, but running two melee weapons on the same team can be kinda good. You suck even more at range than you did before, but if you stick together, you can melt people if you play it right. And when I say play it right, I'm saying that you shouldn't forget the basic strategy of this game. Sometimes when playing melee builds, it can feel like your #1 objective is to run in and kill things, because the option of range has been taken away from you. But you should still apply some of the principles you use when you have a gun. Low health enemies, gonna make it easier to kill them. Fighting multiple enemies alone, gonna have a bad time. Getting behind enemies so you get the first hit, gonna have a good time. The reason you might forget this kind of stuff is because these weapons sort of promote a just keep swinging strategy. Once you're right up in someone's business, not hitting them to throw some utility or try to dip to some cover just really isn't a good idea. You know, most of the time. I'll get to the saber when I get to it. And after you get punished for trying that, your brain is going to tell you, hey, don't use utility. Stop complicating things. Just run at people and hit them. But you don't listen to that, okay? It's everything leading up to the part where you just keep swinging that you have to use your brain for. Target selection, util buffs, positioning, fighting with your team. Do all of that and then switch your brain off and start swinging when you see an enemy, alright? This is, again, just FPS Strategy 101. But at least for me, I mentally stop playing a shooter game and start playing Cookie Clicker. So please, don't make the mistake I did. Use the melee for good, not brain rot. Anyway, it's time to start talking about specifics. The first weapon on our... sorry, hold on a second. The first weapon on our list is the sledgehammer. It's for the heavy only, and the draw of it is that right-clicking lets you destroy a wall. Now, there are a ton of utility and canisters littered all over this game that can destroy walls. How exactly is this important or unique? Well, the sledgehammer gives you the only consistent source of terrain damage in the game. The grenade launchers, weirdly, take a really long time to do terrain damage, but the sledgehammer does. Things like the charge and the rocket launcher do destroy buildings, but they have a cooldown. This thing alone can bring a building to its knees, and when you pair it with a charge, it may only take seconds. The question is if you want to do this strategy. If you're defending a cash out in a building, the answer is no, which makes me automatically think that if you are attacking a cash out in a building, the answer would be yes, but I don't know. It's situational. Let's leave it at that. If you've got a lot of time and you know the enemy has a bunch of defenses set up, why not? What the terrain damage should be used for mostly is making quick shortcut holes for you and your team. Before I do that though, I need to make sure that this light class doesn't obliterate us. Yeah, you better run. Anyway, what was I saying?
Use your sledgehammer to break in.
Patience, Uncle Russell, patience. Anyway, the sledgehammer also has a not as powerful left click swing. Doesn't do any terrain damage, just a quick little swing to use in a fight. Something very important we get out of the way is when to use which attacks to kill your opponent most optimally. I did some testing and here's what I found. When killing a medium class at full health, a left click and then a right click in any order will kill. However, if the medium class is missing a single bar of health, 2 light attacks will kill, and if 2 bars of health are missing, 1 heavy attack will kill. This is way too complicated for most players, I'm aware. Don't worry. Unless you have amazing communication with your team, this won't come up all that often. So I'll just say this. Starting off with a heavy attack is usually the correct move. Lights die to 1 heavy attack, heavies die to 2 heavy attacks, mediums are going to die to 1 light attack after that, and you can check a heavy's health after the first hit. If he has 4 or less health bars, then you're good to go. If he has more, hit him with the big attack again. This is really important to understand going into the sledgehammer. I didn't, and it led to so many awkward moments. So my advice to you is, hey, if you are doing more than 1 light attack to an enemy, you're probably doing something wrong. That's not the only reason I'm going to give you to start off with heavy attacks, because starting off with a heavy attack can help you out in another way. That being the unique strategy that the melee heavy has to adhere to. See, the other classes will more often than not be rewarded for chasing down enemies. Light is really quick, so obviously they can chase people down, and medium is faster or just as fast as 2/3 of the classes. But the heavy has a much harder time with chasing people down. Sure, he's got that charge, but sometimes that doesn't work out because by the time your charge is done, the enemy could have already mag dumped you because you've got such a big hitbox. If an enemy wants to, they can run away and the heavy can't really do a whole lot about it. So, heavy can't really fight people that keep their distance. That means to effectively play heavy's melee, we have to get the enemy to come to us. Now, you could do that by sitting in a corner all day and getting nothing done, hoping that someone shows up. This isn't too bad for defending a cash out, but that probably isn't what the majority of a game is going to look like. So outside of playing the objective, my favorite strategy is a very simple one, and that's pretending to run away. Take a look at these clips. This light class knows I have a melee weapon that can one-shot them. But the second I run around a corner, some primal instinct to chase after things running away kicks in, and they come in close, only to completely eat my sledgehammer. Or this clip. I intentionally use the cover the wall provides to start charging up my heavy attack. And by the time this guy makes it around the corner, he immediately eats my sledgehammer. Now, I'm at a huge advantage because instead of taking damage the whole time I was charging up the attack, I basically get a free hit in, and all I have to do after that is land another heavy attack, and I win the encounter. But this isn't the only way to make enemies chase you, as loadout is massive for achieving this. There are plenty of viable heavy melee loadouts, but I'm just going to show you my favorite. Really, all a heavy melee loadout needs is something to block damage, and a ranged option. In my loadout, I run either charge or mesh shield. I can't really decide which is better. Charge is probably the best melee weapon in the game. You can absolutely tear down buildings, but most importantly, you can do crazy damage, and close the gap on enemies, making it Heavy's only mobility option he can equip. It's for sure the more fun option, but the mesh shield might be more effective. The strategy for the mesh shield goes like this. When you find an enemy, pop the mesh shield. What some players will try to do to counter the mesh shield is move in really close to get past the shield. I hope you can understand why this is good for us. because we've now tricked the enemy into coming in close. This can also be done with the bubble shield. However, most players will try to spam that instead of going in close. If on either utility you get spammed down, your best move is usually back off, or take advantage of your enemy's lower ammo count and more erratic spray pattern. I found that's good mostly with the bubble shield and charge. Something else I should mention is that it wouldn't be a terrible idea to hold out something other than the sledgehammer while running around. Because if you hold out the sledgehammer and then pop a shield, chances are your enemy isn't falling for that. So yeah, use the shield on yourself and...
Shields, they're not for you. They're for me, the guy healing you. Shield me.
Oh, come on, Uncle Russell. Let me have fun. Ugh. He does bring up a good point, though. Using the shields is also more beneficial to your team over the charge. It's still really boring, though. I should also mention the goo gun really quick. I couldn't really get this thing to click with me, which is a shame, because it's a really unique utility. The way you're supposed to use it goes like this. You fire out balls of goo that allow you to fortify a position while defending, and you get an infinite amount. Pretty cool. It's too bad then that the whole community uses it for literally anything else. The goo melee build uses what is more than likely an exploit to trap players inside, stunning them, so to speak. While you're trapped like this, you get no indication. You are not told you have been stunned by goo. You get the noise of goo, and that's it. The second the goo fully forms, you're freed. You can't shoot out of it if the goo landed on your face either. I don't really want to start arguing about if stun mechanics belong in this game. Just, for me personally, fighting this goo gladiator playstyle is not fun. Therefore, when using this thing on other players, I feel pretty bad most of the time. Not that I could get it to work a whole bunch, but when I did enjoy using this, it was against this light class. This light class was using the dash and the taser. Now, the taser is a pretty mid weapon most of the time. Often when you use this thing, the enemy still just shoots you. But when used on a melee build, they can do actually nothing. And on top of that, he was using the evasive dash, making my chances of catching this guy super slim. But the goo gun trapped him long enough and wasted an evasive dash because he got stuck, allowing me to one-shot him with my sledgehammer. So that was pretty cool. Really, the most fun I had with this thing was doing cool parkour across the map. So it's not for me, but don't let that stop you from giving it a try. Anyway, back to talking about loadouts I actually play. In the original version of this script, I had a whole rant here about how I never know what to use in the Heavy's final slot. However, now that Season 2 is out, I can confidently say that the Gravity Cube is king. Heavy struggles with mobility, like I've been saying, so even though it's slow and vertical, it's better than anything else I've used in the slot, hands down. Anyway, that's enough about Heavy. We still have 2 other classes to get to. Before we do though, one quick thing I just found out. First of all, being vertically above your enemy is really powerful, with or without melee. You can close the distance really quick on an enemy, which is a big thing Heavy melee struggles with, as I've been saying, and some of the other melees as well. But it's even better if you pair it with the charge. If you didn't know, using the charge mid-air results in the Heavy going for a ground pound. And he can do this even by just doing a normal jump. But the charge does more damage proportional to how long you've been falling while ground pounding. This is the highest place I could test it, and the ground pound does as much damage here as a heavy attack. But you can just charge up a hit mid-air. What's the point? Well, this could potentially go beyond a heavy attack threshold. But also, its damage is in an area, meaning that you could do this damage to anyone in the area of your ground pound. Why hold the nuke when you could be the nuke? If you're going to attempt this, my best advice is to start the ground pound at your highest point in your jump and try to land next to people, not on them. If you land on them, you could lose out on those extra couple of feet, which shockingly sometimes make a difference. Anyway, now to actually talk about the medium melee. The melee weapon for the medium class is actually 2 in 1. It's a baton and a riot shield. Now, if you're a melee connoisseur like myself, you might just hop in with the baton and just keep swinging. If the shield happens to block some shots, cool. But these are a pair for a reason. If you don't use the shield, you aren't going to realize your full potential for this thing. The left click on the riot shield is still a quick attack, just like the sledgehammer, but instead of the right click being a big swing, it raises the shield in front of your face, letting you block more damage. Though, as you'll soon find out, probably on your first round with this thing, it does not fully protect your body. This comes as a surprise because the game doesn't really show you this all that well. From my perspective, I look fully covered, but nope, I guess not. I did some testing to see what's going on. So, when you raise the shield in front of you, it blocks the majority of your body, leaving just your feet vulnerable. Looking straight down to try and cover your feet results in no visible change. I know you can't tell, but my friend is looking straight down in this clip, and there's no change to his player model. Looking up, on the other hand, does provide us with some visual feedback. Walking doesn't really make your feet any more or less visible while raising the shield that I can tell. From this testing and experience playing, I've concluded that using the raise on the shield is not for being a little turtle and hiding in a corner. You really aren't going to get a whole lot done. Enemies don't really try and get around the shield all that often, like when I was using the mesh shield. And why would they? They can do damage to me. I'm slower when raising my shield, so any gap closing isn't going to be really possible. They are free to keep doing damage to me, and I can't really do anything about it. So don't use the right click for blocking damage just to waste ammo or time. Instead, it should be kinda used for emergencies. If you're nearby cover and an enemy shows up, raise the shield until you can get into cover. Enemy's aim is going to be thrown off, and you're going to take a minimal amount of damage. Using the shield doesn't block all damage types though. Enemies can still melee you through it. You're still going to take fire and gas damage. This clip with the heavy and RPG is particularly upsetting. There's just nothing I can do. Getting hard count— What? I didn't take any damage? He died? So, as it turns out, the shield can block all explosive damage if you're looking at the explosion. Just look at this clip. Look at it. I am being a complete moron and running towards the sound of beeping C4. This should be curtains for me. I should not survive. However, that was, count with me, 1 explosive barrel and 2 C4, 3 explosives launched at my center of mass, point blank, and I live, and the heavy dies? I love this thing, dude. Not only can you counter bullets, you can counter a whole nuke if you want to. Now, I should mention before you go out trying to parry everything like Dark Souls, it seems like this feature is pretty finicky. You have to be looking at the explosive, obviously. But sometimes it doesn't really matter. Look at this grenade launcher medium class start soaring through the sky and carpet bombing me. And while he's carpet bombing me, no matter where I'm looking, it feels like I can't counter his explosives. So be mindful that the grenade launchers still tear you apart. But you don't actually have to have the shield raised in front of you to block damage. It can actually still block damage while you're running with it. Which means that if we run at a certain angle, we can block some damage and be fully mobile. This allows you to do some flashy hit and run strats. You've got pretty good speed, so you could run straight in, trying to use the shield to block a decent amount of shots, and then afterwards dip out. And if you can't find an exit, then you can use the shield to throw off their aim, giving you more time to think about your next move. Here's one of my favorite clips demonstrating how briefly using the shield can be massive. During this clip, I'm unable to get close enough to the enemy combo. I would certainly die, so all I do is pull their attention long enough, for free because of the shield. And after a minute, my teammates can start doing damage to them, and the second they do, aggro is pulled off of me, allowing me to go in and start destroying them. Then I chase them down until I can finally land the killing blows on them. Using the shields raised most effectively requires a lot of game sense. Game sense relating to how your enemy thinks. Like, at what point is this guy gonna stop trying to shoot me? To reload or whatever, leaving him open for being rushed down. That's a bit of a harder scenario. I'll show you one that I played pretty damn well. So I'm chasing down this medium class that's all alone, when I notice that he has the revolver equipped. Now, I could keep blocking, hoping that he dumps all 6 shots and then close the distance. But instead, I get perfectly in the rhythm of his shots, closing as much distance as I can, and then perfectly timing a block to stop his shot. Multiple times. You fool! I've blocked all of your shots, And I've hit you twice. One more before you're spectating me pissing on your grave. Now, do as I say, and die of fall damage! Ha ha! Smart kid. I was afraid I was gonna have to... You gotta be careful around those ledges, but there's a good reason why he took the easy way out. Fighting against this melee is really hard. This thing melts really quick, and because of the shield, there's an okay chance that you can take almost anyone you see in a 1v1. But it could be even better if it weren't for this weird feature. See, in this game, all melee weapons get insane aim assist, to the point where left-clicking might as well just give you aimbot. Now that may sound like a useful feature. You're going to be able to hit more often, and close quarter combat can be pretty hectic, but this more or less means that you are stuck committing to a hit on an enemy. That enemy could leave your melee range, and another better target could enter, but you can't change target mid-swing because the lock-on is fighting you the whole way. That feels like a minor necessary evil, but on the shield it lowers the skill ceiling enough to make me actually consider looking through the options to turn it off. Because here's my theoretical endgame for using the shield to maximum potential. So the shield is on the left side of the screen, right? And we don't have to use the shield for it to block damage. So if we take that principle, and instead of looking directly at the enemy the whole time we're hitting them, during the melee attack's windup, we can look at an angle like this so that the shield blocks as many bullets as possible, and then we swing our mouse over just at the right time, connecting the hit, and then back again to block more bullets. Keep repeating that until the enemy is dead. I have yet to incorporate this into my gameplay though because of the aim assist. Because if I'm looking away from the guy I want to attack, the game is going to assume that I want to attack the enemy in front of me, and pull me away from my real target. Or it might pull me to my target immediately, which is also not what I want, because then I can't use the shield to block more damage.
So this begs the question of why the feature even exists at all. I'm on keyboard and mouse. I don't need this feature to help me. At first I thought it might be that the game has bad melee registration. A lot of games have that problem, so maybe this is a band-aid fix? But really, no. This game has great melee registration. Then I thought, well, maybe it's a nerf, because the melee weapons would be too good without it. But Embark is really good at game design, alright? The only time where they take away control of where you are looking is recoil, but that's the same every time. It's predictable. This feature more or less decides when it wants to work, taking control away from the player.
At the time of writing this, there's no way to turn off the melee aim block, but I think I would still like the option to. Please? Pretty please? Anyways, it's time to talk about the loadout that I use. Big shout out to Season GS for commenting his loadout. I have found it to be the best loadout for melee. Remember how hard Heavy struggled with distance closing? Yeah, that is much less of a problem with this loadout. Using the zipline gets you pretty darn far, and the jump pad, while being good at vertical mobility, can be amazing at horizontal mobility as well if you plant your jump pad on a sloped surface, like the rooftops in Monaco.
Do you want to go fight these guys? Do you have a catapult?
Yes, let's go! And the shield plus this mobility allows you to grab teammates with minimal risk. It really does make you feel like Batman.
Don't worry, I'll save you, citizen.
The one thing I will add to this loadout is that I run the Guardian turret instead of the Medigun, despite the Medigun being much better 90% of the time. Here's my rationale. With the shield, there is an okay chance I can block damage my team is taking with it. But you know what damage I'm sure I can block? Damage my sentry gun is taking while getting set up. And when I'm using the sentry gun, I can place it down right when I get into a fight. And while this was coined in Team Fortress 2, God bless you, Uncle Dane, you can use the distraction sentry to pretty good effectiveness in this game too. A distraction sentry is a simple move that can make combat more difficult for your opponent, and you get more options in a fight. Now your enemy is on a timer. Once the sentry finishes setting up, you're going to be at a big advantage because two things are now trying to do damage to him. But if your opponent focuses the sentry gun now, He risks you closing the gap, getting a free hit, or needing to reload sooner. And if they're smart, they'll run away. But it could be the opposite situation. You could set up a sentry gun in a spot, and then bait your enemies into that spot. Well, made you run to my sentry, so you know what? I don't even care. Making the I sure am running away strategy even better. If you somehow haven't already, check out Uncle Dane's YouTube channel to learn more about sentry gun style gameplay in a different FPS game. Otherwise, I'm gonna sit here and plagiarize him all day. And you don't want that. Anyway, I think that's it for the shield. I think it's more fun and better than the sledgehammer. So my tier list looks something like this right now. Anyway, here's the saber. The saber, or sword, is a light class only weapon that has a left click light attack and a right click heavy attack. Have I seen you before? Okay, the core concept of the two may be the same, but where it differs is that the light class's saber's right click attack can be charged and held. You can stay in the stance as long as you'd like. Instead of having to do a wind-up heavy attack around a corner and practically guess when the enemy is coming around, you can hold the heavy attack as long as you need to and strike at the perfect time. It's also probably worth going over how the heavy attack works because it's really unique and kinda confusing. The heavy attack is more like a lunge attack, sending you forward on release. Now, during this period of your sword sticking out in front of you, it is hot. And what I mean by that is it will hit anything it touches from the start of the animation to the end. Now, once it connects with one player, you can't hit another with the same attack. When I first started using the saber, I was still kinda using it like the riot shield. I just kept swinging on people, and why not? The other melee weapons have all rewarded me with being really close to the enemy and continuing to swing on them until they die. But the reason I was rewarded was because distance closing is really hard to do when you're heavy, and still fairly challenging on medium. But distance closing on light, by comparison, is super easy. It's so easy. You are the fastest class in the game. Every one of your abilities can be used to close the distance by running at people instead of turtling. And when I saw that, I was like, finally, something easy. I just gotta close the distance and then keep swinging on it. Oh no! Whatever, that was probably just a fluke. What? Come on! Okay, but surely I have this guy, right? Okay. Because getting in close is so easy on light, the game does not reward you for being right up in someone's face and hitting them repeatedly. So how am I supposed to use this thing? Going in close and wailing on people is all I know. Well, friend, let me introduce you to the evasive dash. The evasive dash is, by far, the best ability when using the saber. The invis is okay, but there's the invis bomb, so why? And the grappling hook is okay too. But when I tell you about what makes the evasive dash so good, you'll see why I don't think there's a contest here. The evasive dash can distance close, not as much as the grappling hook, but it still can. It can also help you dodge out of an enemy's sightline while you're fighting them, improving your survivability. And the evasive dash can help you get out of combat when you're realizing things just aren't going your way. And there's one thing I've yet to talk about the evasive dash that makes it so much better than the rest. Take a look at this. With the evasive dash, you can extend the range that your saber attack goes, an extremely strong move that allows you to get targets just out of reach. The lunge attack gives you a tiny speed boost also, so if you use it in between dashes, it can be like having a fourth dash in a fight. Up close and personal is how I prefer to play this weapon. Never given my enemy the time to breathe, but there's another way to play this loadout. Take a look at this clip and tell me if you can see the differences. This strategy is known as a hit and run, hitting your enemy and then running away just as they're about to retaliate. I do not like playing this way. It's probably the best way to play with the saber, but it's just not my style. And my style doesn't tend to work out all that often. Because the light has such low health, if enemies can hit their shots or hit me with one explosive, I'm dead. Do you see how fast this medium melts me? It's crazy. And even though I was just singing the praises of the evasive dash, I really don't like it. Dashes and shooters peaked in Overwatch, and I've disliked them ever since. It feels very finicky to use, and I almost never dash in the place I want to go to, because I'm not pressing the right buttons.
Because the evasive dash is pretty essential for using the sword, for the longest time I was absolutely horrible at using the sword, which didn't really make sense to me, because it's one of the highest regarded melee weapons in the game. So what am I missing that everyone else is getting? Could I just be bad? No. Well, probably not. Because there's a feature that all of the melee weapons have that I haven't talked about, and that's the V key. For the uninformed console player, the V key is the default melee key, as in the last Hail Mary that all of the weapons, even the guns, have. For multiple months, I thought this key was useless on the melee weapons. I mean, it does so little damage compared to the left or right clicks on all of the melee weapons, so to understand the potential of this key, we need to go back to the sledgehammer. The sledgehammer has a quick attack and a heavy attack. In most cases, you should use the heavy attack to start out because it has the highest damage per second out of the two options. But you should still use the light attack even though it does less damage. And why should you do that? Because there are certain health thresholds where a light attack will kill, and performing the light attack is faster than performing the heavy attack. And there lies the key to the V key, because how fast is it? Lightning. It's so fast that it cancels the melee animation, meaning that the frame that your melee hit connects with your enemy, you can hit V and basically get another free bar of damage. Doing this on the sledgehammer is okay. You can kill a light class with a left click and a V key, a medium class with 2 left clicks and a V key, and a heavy with a heavy and a light attack. This all seems really great. Killing an enemy faster is always a good thing. So why didn't I mention this when I was talking about the sledgehammer or riot shield? Well, it's because I didn't know about the strategy. Wow, this guy refuses to rewrite a script. What a loser. I'll be good. The reason I didn't rewrite my script is because I didn't need the strategy to do good with the other melee weapons. I was getting 10 to 15 kill games still, because killing really quickly isn't that important on the sledgehammer and riot shield. You can already do really good damage up close, and both of these weapons let you sustain your life up close. The riot shield blocks damage, and the heavy just has a lot of health. Being right up on someone is where you want to be. Getting there is where the struggle is, more so for heavy than the riot shield. But the sword's only option for up-close sustainability is dodging. Now, if you're in some of the lower ranks, dodging around might just be enough to consistently save you. Huge! Down the tree! Let's go! But the more advanced players you meet, the more aim gods you're gonna run into that spend 100 hours practicing tracking every month. And to beat them, you're gonna have to increase the damage you can put out. And the sword is gonna be able to get the most out of the V key. Sure, the sledgehammer has some new combos with it, but the sledgehammer has better range than the V key, meaning that you might not be able to perform the combo always, which will increase your time to kill instead of decrease. And the riot shield gets less mileage out of the V key. The only place where it helps is finishing off heavies. But the sword, oh baby, the sword. You can get in close and you have crazy combos. If you aren't using the V key on the sword, you're missing out. You can immediately kill a light class. You can make a medium class die to 1 left click instead of 2 after the lunge plus V key combo. And you can effectively kill a heavy with 2 lunges if you use the combo. This alone makes the sword go from a high B tier to S tier. This thing is hard to understand, but once you do, you can go on a rampage. The utility for this weapon isn't really all that important. I like using the tracking dart because it helps out your team from a distance, which normally wouldn't be possible because, you know. Invis bomb is pretty good too, and the taser can have its uses, and the portal is nice for some extra movement. Again, utility isn't as important as the other classes. It's really sword focused. If you study the blade, it will reward you massively. So, that's it, right? How is there still time in this video? I did all 3 classes right. Ah! It's me, Cooler Gallantry, and I'm taking over this YouTube channel. You can tell I'm different because I've got new cosmetics. Anyway, while I'm here, I guess I'll talk about the dagger. Somebody got a mop? The dagger is the light class's second melee weapon. A lot of the things about the saber also apply to the dagger, such as the evasive dash being an amazing choice, but it's really good for a different reason. This weapon has the left click light attack that all the melee weapons have, but this is by far the worst in the game. It does a pitiful 2 bars of health. For comparison, the V key melee that every weapon in the game can do does 1.5 bars, and the right click's damage isn't much better.
Actually, it's not better at all. The damage with the left click and right click are the exact same, but the right click has a longer wind-up animation. Now, if you didn't know any better, you'd call the Dagger a worse saber, but you probably know that this isn't it for the Dagger, because the Dagger can backstab. Ooh. If you right-click with the Dagger and aim for an enemy's back, you can one-shot both lights and mediums, and you can leave heavies with 1 health bar. This thing obviously has a lot of potential. Now, the best way for someone new to the Dagger is to be all sneaky. Find your target, wait till they're distracted, and then stab a knife in their back and walk away like nothing happened. When I tried this, I was sure that the invis would be perfect, going all cloak and dagger on people. But I found that oftentimes the cloak would just give me away. Anyone with headphones can hear the ear-piercing glitchy sound effect that the invis makes. And even if you close the distance, then they spot you. Now what? You can't just two-shot them like you can if you had the shotgun. The invis ruins your approach, and you can't reliably get out with it either. You know what I'm about to talk about, and I can't believe I have to say it again, but the evasive dash is amazing on the Dagger. Take a look at this clip, because it should answer all your questions about why the evasive dash is so good. Oh, I did the tag! Did you see that? Even though the enemy knows about me and is actively trying to kill me, I use the evasive dash to get behind him for just long enough for me to get a melee swing in, one-shotting him. This has to be the most fun I've had on Light, because it's hard to pull off, but so rewarding when you do. When you start the melee animation at the perfect time, when your opponent is just the perfect distance away from you, and you perform the dash perfectly, everything comes together and you get rewarded with an instant kill. I love one-shot mechanics in video games. Now that's a bold statement, because it's usually when I'm on the side that's one-shotting people. But I especially love when they take skill. Headshots in CS, Troller in TF2, right-click Sledgehammer a light class that totally had it coming. All of these spike my dopamine so hard. And going for trick stabs in this game, mwah, magnifique, because they take skill. And when they go bad, oh boy, do they go bad. Beyond just missing stabs, sometimes backstabs just don't. I'm pretty sure I'm behind this guy, but nope, I guess not, somehow. I have so many clips of me trying to go for backstabs, but it gets ruined because the game just doesn't count it. This one with the cash out looks like it's going great. I pick up a stab on the guy capping and get out super quick. However, his friend starts capping and is a bit smarter than his predecessor because he starts capping on top of the cash out. Because he did this, he can now look a full 360 degrees because no matter which way he's facing, he's always looking at the cash out and he can keep his back away from me. Realizing this guy is much smarter, I try to go for light attacks on him, but they suck, so he gets the cap. That's the thing. If an enemy is smart, they'll just put their back in a corner and now I can't do anything except hit them with the second weakest melee attack in the game. Let's talk about the loadout really quick. The loadout is very similar to the sabers, which is a shame because I would have said that smoke grenades can finally make their debut, but now that the light class has the gateway, which feels like a must-have, the smoke grenade is a lot harder to justify putting in a loadout. The gateway has a cool strategy on top of already being amazing, that the Dagger can take full advantage of. Basically, you throw the gate above the cash out, and then when an enemy starts capping, throw the other gate and go through to pick up a free backstab. This is why I choose to not run the taser on the Dagger, because picking up kills on the cash out is a super easy way to stall out the timer and get a bunch of kills doing it, just as long as they don't wisen up. Sorry, smoke grenades. Maybe some other day. I had a really great moment in game with a player found in matchmaking called Simply Ironic. He told me that,
Hello. Yo, sword light? Grenade launcher sword light is a combo, actually.
is it?
Yeah, okay. So I played with some better people who do the grenade launcher sword light thing once, and the thing is, grenade launcher is loud. So you cover the light's footsteps by being really loud.
And while I do think this to be true, I think there's a much bigger picture to look at. The melee weapons thrive off of chaos in general. When buildings are falling down and crumbling, and nobody knows where anything is, that's where melee builds thrive. When using the melee weapon, it's your job to take as much advantage as you can from the chaotic nature of this game. To break through as the underdog and prove everybody who underestimates you wrong. And while you might not have range, if you use enough fancy tricks and show enough gallantry, you just might be able to reach the finals. Thank you so much for watching. This is Gallantry, signing out. Later!
Thanks for watching the whole thing, y'all. I just made a community Discord, so check the pinned comment if you want to join. I'm going to be fairly active on there, so if you'd like to talk to me or others in the community, pinned comment. I also have a Twitter or X. If you'd like occasional video progress updates or just ramblings, I'll leave a link below. Other than that, thank you so much for all the nice words and general support. I'm not used to all this support, and all of your comments genuinely melt my heart. I hope I can keep this thing up for years to come. So, yeah, oh my god, what is that? Oh, it's a graph, no!